Hi, everybody. Mrs. Bianchi. I want to provide you all with some clarity on when we have to figure out the distance between 2 points. Why is it that sometimes we're adding the absolute value of the coordinates that differ from each other, and other times we're subtracting? So we're going to look at 3 points here, or three situations where we're going to examine that. So let's talk about how would we calculate the distance between points A and B. So I wrote the ordered pair for A. It's a -2, 6, and B is a -2, 1. And we've learned in class that you look to see what's different. Is it the X or the Y's that are different from each other? In this case, it's the Y's. When they're in the same quadrant, these are both in quadrant 2, then we would subtract the absolute value. And if we subtracted the absolute value of a 6 from a 1, that would be 6 minus 1, and we would end up getting 5. But let's explore why that works. So if we ask ourselves, how far away is point A from 0 on the number line, right? So it ends, see, zero's right here. A is 6 units away. The length of that red line is 6 units. So I'm going to put this over here for a second. If we ask ourselves, how far away is B from 0 on the number line? And again, we're talking about 0. We're talking about on the Y because that's the thing that differs from each other. That's 1 unit away from 0. Now, if we needed to figure out what's the length of this blue line, see, the blue line and the green line has to add up to be the red line. And isn't that the distance between the 2 points? But if we didn't know what that number was, because we know that this red line is 6 units, right? We know that the the green line is 1 unit. So we know that the green line plus the blue line has to equal the red line, and that's how we come up with the 5, right? Because 1 plus 5 would equal 6. But when you see it represented this way, sometimes it makes more sense. So let's talk about, what about between points B and C? Now, these are in different quadrants. C is in quadrant 1. B is in quadrant 2. They're in different quadrants. I wrote the ordered pairs down. So point B is a -2, 1. Point C is a 4, 1. And what we've learned in class is that we would look at the coordinates that differ from each other. We would figure out the absolute values of those. And in this case, since they're in different quadrants, we would add the absolute value. But let's explore, why does that work? So over here, I have the actual distance between the 2 points right here. This blue line represents the answer of 6. But why is it that we're adding the absolute value? What does this have to do with it? Well, this point, if I just move this away for a second, the B point is 2 units away from the Y line. Point C is 4 units away from the Y line. So the length of this red line is 2. The length of this green line is 4. And of course, to get the total distance, which is what the blue line is, wouldn't we be adding those two things together? Makes perfect sense, right? All right, so let me move these out of the way, and let's talk about points C and D. Points C and D, again, are in different quadrants. So the distance between these 2 points would be represented right here with that blue line. But why are we adding the absolute value? So again, what do we do on paper? These are the coordinates that differ from each other. So we would be talking about the absolute value of a 1 plus the absolute value of a -4. And the absolute value of a 1 is 1. So what are we really figuring out? We're figuring out how far away that is from the line, which would be 0. And again, we're looking at the Y line here. How far away is this from the line? And that would be also 4, right? So when we simplify the absolute value of a -4, the length of that red line is 4 units. And if we add 1 plus 4, we get the total length, which would be represented here with this blue line, of 5 units. 5 units between points C and D. Now in class, I think we've gotten pretty good at just looking at the coordinates that differ from each other and understanding whether they're in the same quadrant. So sometimes if it's multiple choice and you don't have to show work, then you wouldn't have to go through all this. Many of you can do that in your head. But if there is a workspace to fill in, then you should show the absolute values and all this work that you see here on the screen.